We're here today this morning because Wildrose has obtained new information about illegal political contributions solicited and accepted by the PC party. Before I get into it, let me just give a bit of background. In 2004, the PC government made it illegal for political parties to ask for and to accept political contributions from what they termed prohibited corporations, so municipalities, school boards, public libraries, post-secondary institutions, PDD councils, and even health authorities. Essentially what the government did is they made it illegal for political parties to accept taxpayer dollars in the form of donations. It's a good law, and it's a common sense law. It's one we support. However, over the years, Wildrose has been able to uncover several instances of the PCs accepting these kinds of donations even after they became illegal. These revelations spurred an Elections Alberta investigation in order to get to the bottom of the issue, and with our pressure, the PCs even vowed to lift the gag law that prevented Elections Alberta from disclosing the results of their investigations. It appeared as though Albertans were finally going to get some transparency and accountability. However, true to form, the PCs stepped in to save their own skins. The PCs only lifted the gag law, but they only did it for donations dating back to April of 2010. That investigation revealed $24,000 in illegally obtained contributions, most of which it's been reported the PCs paid back. But it also meant that the illegal donations the PCs asked for and received between 2004 and 2010 from prohibited corporations would remain a secret until today. We conducted freedom of information requests, multiple freedom of information requests from various prohibited corporations, municipalities, school boards, post-secondary institutions, and so on. And through that, I think we assembled some 2,300 pages of documentation. We've determined that the PCs accepted at least $102,776 in illegal donations between 2004 and 2010. That's over $100,000 of taxpayer dollars that should have gone to roads or classrooms or research that instead wound up in the PC party election war chest. Now, let me be clear. Wildrose has a lot of sympathy for the organizations that have found themselves caught in the middle of this mess. We have heard from many mayors and school trustees and others who are at these prohibited corporations who say things like, this is how things were done, or relationships had to be built, or there might be consequences of not attending PC party fundraisers. But the buck stops with the PC party and the PC government. They wrote the law and then they proceeded to break it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. In total, we found 238 instances of illegal donations to the PC party from 41 different municipalities in the time frame that was blacked out by the PC gag law between 2004 and 2010. And we're revealing them today for two reasons. Number one, Albertans deserve to know. The PCs have actively tried to keep this information a secret, and it's easy to see why. They've been campaigning with over $100,000 that doesn't belong to them. It belongs to taxpayers. Number two, this is a crucial test for Jim Prentice's leadership. Earlier this week, when we revealed that Minister Stephen Mandel billed taxpayers for a donation that he made to the PC party, he committed to paying it back. And that's good, although it took getting caught for him to do it. The question is now, will Jim Prentice follow suit? He has a choice. He can choose to do nothing and keep $100,000 of taxpayer dollars in his party's coffers, perhaps to even use in these by-elections. Or he can show he's actually serious about changing the PC culture of entitlement and return the money to taxpayers. We're going to be writing a letter to the elections officer later today, turning over all of the documents that we have revealed through freedom of information and asking for an investigation into all of these donations that we believe have been received illegally. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
How much, when there have been previous releases of illegal donations found through setting up party documents and things like that, how much overlap do you believe there is between what you have previously known and these donations?
None. The amount that the Elections Alberta released publicly were only going back to 2010 because that was the only authority that he was granted under the legislation to release publicly. So when we realized that the legislation was limited to just having him go back to 2010 and release that information, we wanted to see what the problem was between 2004 and 2010. So these would all be new donations.
But a lot of the allegations that were made before by your party and others consisted of donations that were made prior to 2010. So getting away from what Elections Alberta has released,
yeah.
How much do you think, if any, is there between what you have talked about previously and other organizations have talked about previously?
We may have found a handful from prior to 2010, but the amount that that Elections Alberta has put on their website, which comes to a total of $24,000, is post 2010. These 238 would be from prior to that. So these are by and large brand new figures.
How much do you think this is really going to stick on? This is long before his time with the provincial party or his premier, and he's going to say, well, it's changed. I mean, this has got nothing to do with me.
Well, Mr. Prentice can't have it both ways. He can't take credit for all the things that he liked that the PCs announced and did, like his school's announcement last week, and then try to distance himself from all the things he didn't like that they did. He decided to run for the PC party, and he has to run on their record. And we have produced evidence today that they have received $100,000 in illegal donations that have to be paid back. It was breaking the law to solicit and receive them. The corporations should not have been bullied or pressured into feeling that they had to go to PC party fundraisers. They tried to pass a law to shield them from having this information released publicly, and we found it. So it's up to him to demonstrate that he is going to be serious about changing the culture of entitlement and the culture of the PC party. And the only way he can do that is to make amends for past wrongdoing, and in this case, return this money.
Do you believe these organizations were bullied into?
We've seen evidence of that. And again, we talked to many, many mayors and trustees and others who often say that this is just how business was done, that if you didn't go to a PC party function, you would be worried that you wouldn't get your grant application approved. And to me, that goes back to the culture of bullying and intimidation that we've heard about with this PC government for a long time. That no school board, no municipality, no prohibited corporation under the law should feel bullied into breaking the law to be able to support a particular political party. And the fact that it happened time and time again, dozens of times, even after the law was made clear in 2004, and once again a clarification was released in 2008, they continue to do it. So the only real way to make amends for past wrongdoing is to pay the money back. If they have just with $100,000 that we were able to find, perhaps the Elections Alberta officer might be able to find more. But we believe that the only way for them to be able to demonstrate that this really is change is to recognize that wrongdoing occurred and that the money should be paid back. That's what Mr. Mandel did this week, and so I think that that sets a good example for Mr. Prentice. He should do the same with the remaining amounts of these illegal donations.
Just just looking at your news release here, when it talks about the second paragraph from the bottom, it says the PCs illegally solicited and or accepted at least $102,000. So is that, was $102,000 actually that given by these organizations?
Correct, $102,776.68 to be precise. And we have 41 different municipalities that we've identified in 238 different contributions. So the law is quite clear, and the reason why we use this language is that you aren't allowed to solicit or receive donations from illegal corporations, and it is up to the party who is receiving these donations to ensure that they have come from the correct source and that they're not being received incorrectly.
Why would these have not shown up then on party financial records that are supposed to be released?
It's a good question. I mean, we found earlier this week when we made note of Mr. Mandel's contribution that it didn't show up on party financials as well. And again, that's the reason why we're turning this over to Elections Alberta to do that kind of investigation. But when you see the clear paper trail of the dollars spent and the fact that it's being spent by these illegal corporations, that's pretty clear evidence that there's some wrongdoing. And we need to make sure that all of these dollars get back to where they belong in the hands of the entity so that they can be spent on things that are of value to taxpayers.
Are these cases where a reeve or a mayor or a school board official is making the donation and then being reimbursed by the organization, and so therefore it would show up as the on a party financial record as an individual making the donation?
It's a combination, and we'll make the documents available. As I said, we've got 2,300 pages of documents that we've gone through to identify all of this. And again, it is up to the party to make sure that they're not receiving donations from illegal sources. So this is why we hold the PC party accountable. They were the ones who were soliciting and putting pressure on mayors and trustees and others who belong to corporations that are prohibited from donating to attend their fundraisers with the implicit quid pro quo. And if they didn't, they might not get grants. And that's the culture that existed in the PC party. The only way to correct it is to make sure that this money gets back to where it belongs.
These contributions start with Ralph Klein to go through 5 different premiers: Klein, Stelmach, Redford, or Floyd. What does that say?
It says that this is the fact that we continue to have these ongoing systemic problems, even after the law is changed, even after the law is clarified. The fact that we have dozens and dozens and dozens of violations just shows how deep the culture is in the PC party of thinking that they can pass a law and then float it in the next breath. They really do not believe the rules apply to them. They want the rules to apply to everybody else. We happen to believe that if you've got laws in place, particularly good laws like this, taxpayer dollars should not have any mechanism of flowing through to support a particular political party. Then it's up to the governing party to make sure they're abiding by it. And unfortunately, they failed at that time and time again. And then they tried to shield it by prohibiting the Elections Alberta from going back prior to 2010 as if the past didn't matter. Well, they made the law clear in 2004, and as a result, they have to be accountable for all of the illegal donations they received since that time.
What would you say to people who say this is so long ago, some of this stuff's 10 years ago, it's Ralph Klein, it's Ed Stelmach, that's just so long in the past that it's, you know, it's too dusty to worry about it.
Well, we only just found out about it. I mean, we had to go through freedom of information requests and get multiple documents from multiple different sources to be able to piece this together. I wish that there had been others who had done this investigation so that it didn't take the official opposition to do it. But the fact of the matter is that you don't have a statute of limitations on ethical behavior. Ethical behavior is something that you expect of your government. We've had the same government in power for 43 years. They have flouted the law time and time and time again. And making amends means actually giving the money back and making sure that on a go forward we don't do it again. There's 2 parts to it. Just saying you're not going to do it again is only one part. Giving the money back is, I think, more important for taxpayers so that these dollars go back to the place that they belong. All right.
Can I just ask you about, speaking of ethical issues, there's one of the parties in Calgary Elbow is alleging that there's fraudulent robocalls being made in relation to that. Has your party experienced any issues on?
We were victims of that in the general election, and I hope that they're able to get to the bottom of who is doing it, because it is a voter suppression tactic. And I have to question why somebody would be motivated to do this. But I have sympathy for the Alberta Party, because we experienced the exact same thing during the general election campaign. We also made complaints to the RCMP. We also made complaints to the CRTC. Hopefully they'll be able to get phone numbers so that they can track it down and hold the person responsible who's doing it.
What's your party's use of automated calls and robocalls during the by-election campaign?
We are doing a few things. Last night we did a telephone town hall with Sheila Taylor, and that's where you use an automated system to ask people to join a live telephone town hall, and they press a button and join in, and you leave a message if they're not available. So that's one thing that we've done. We are also sending them, we sent a demon dial asking people if they wanted to volunteer on our different campaigns. And we're sending out another one just asking them to come to a rally. So we do tend to use them very sparingly, just to make sure that we're not, we know all the political parties are using the technologies, and we want to make sure that we're using it just to be able to connect with our volunteers and let them know of upcoming events.
Your party ran afoul with the CRTC over the use of robocalls. I guess, is it something that is easy to accidentally misuse? Because I mean, you said your party said at the time it wasn't intentional. What happened?
What we failed to do was have an introduction at the beginning of each of our robodials saying the name and contact information for where we could be reached, and we have been in compliance with the CRTC rules ever since we learned that you have to put the phone number and the email address or website address that you can be reached at right up at the top. There were it's no excuse, but there was a lack of enforcement on this because that was sort of a common thing that many users of demon dials were doing. They made an example of us, we accepted it, and on all of our demon dials now we make sure that we're fully compliant and making sure that we have the name and contact information right up top.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.